And good morning and welcome to The Skinny for Friday, July 11th. I'm Mitch Perry, the senior political reporter for the Florida Phoenix, joined by my colleague Ray Roa, the editor-in-chief with Creative Loafing newspaper. Hey, Ray, good morning.
Good morning, Mitch. Glad to be back after the holiday.
Yes, indeed. Hope you went away, right? We talked about that on the show, on our tape show last
Rocky
week.
Mountain National Park is looking great. Got in right before he increased the fees for foreigners.
The federal government.
Nobody was talking about that.
Was there any snow? You mentioned snow.
Oh, yeah. My kid, he's 5 years old, Patrick. He saw snow for the first time at Berthoud Pass on the way up, and then again on the snowbanks on the Alpine Tundra, which is only open for a few months. It was an epic trip for a 5-year-old and for this 4-year-old as well.
Well, I got to spend the night before 4th of July on Treasure Island Beach, and that was a good time, definitely. So, yeah, thanks for folks who listened last week if you did. But anyway, we got a good show today. I'm looking forward to it. Later on in the program, we're going to talk about that special election coming up in September, the Tampa City Council, or the passing last month of tragic passing of Gwen Henderson. So that's now going to be a special election. We've got, I believe, 10 candidates.
11.
Well, I think with Goods out, it might be down to 10.
No, it's 11
okay,
now.
Is
Goods
it?
out, and then one was added. We'll talk about this later.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So anyway, that's later on the show. But first, up front here, we've got Thomas Mans from the president and CEO of Feeding Tampa Bay in studio. Good morning, Thomas.
Hello, welcome. Thank you, and we're glad for welcoming me in.
Yeah. We're going to talk about, obviously, food insecurity, hunger, big issues here. And the top of it will be, of course, not of course, but I want to talk about that, and that is, of course, the big legislation, domestic spending and tax package signed by President Trump a week ago today, which many of you probably have been reading about, hearing about. It's got so many different provisions in it, including reductions in food benefits, SNAP benefits, as it were, food stamps, as they used to be called. So we're going to get into that, and in a few minutes, we're actually going to talk to somebody on the Zoom here who was another advocate for children's hunger and talk about a program that Florida does not participate here with for kids, and we'll get into that in a few minutes. So, Thomas, great to see you here at WMNF, and I guess we'll begin with this, with the SNAP cuts that are in the Big Beautiful Bill Act. And we can go over those, but I think the key thing is a couple things. They're not going to go into effect, I don't believe, right, until not immediately, not for a couple of years. The same thing with those Medicaid cuts, and also. Well, we'll get into that, but let's talk about it. So I think this is, I'm reading it, this is like the biggest bill cuts federal funding for SNAP by $186 billion through 2034, according to the CBO, which is the largest cut to food assistance in history.
Yeah, it's a pretty staggering number. I think that whatever our politics are, all of us ought to be concerned about the impact on local communities. And here in Tampa Bay, it will be devastating. And when you think about something like SNAP, it is really meant for folks who are arguably struggling the most. So when you think about SNAP benefits, they have always been targeted towards those who are at the weakest economically, who have the fewest resources in their household. And so for those folks, when you think about somebody that Feeding Tampa Bay serves, you could think about it maybe in 2 or 3 different buckets. We have folks at the top who need us sporadically. So they come in for food and resources when they have a difficult time or moment. Think hurricanes, think life events. We have people kind of in the middle who were probably a fairly regular part of their world, but they have other resources. Most all of those are employed. They're working. They're part of our economy. When you look at folks that use SNAP benefits, they are typically in the weakest position economically. And what that means is they have no other place to turn. And so when you remove a benefit like that from a significant part of our population, in our area alone, it's 250,000 households who will suddenly be without a benefit they've relied on for some period of time. And so that's a consequence of a policy that I think we have to be concerned about how that will impact our community.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I mentioned a moment, though, is that your understanding is that this is not going to kick in for a couple of years?
So that is my understanding today. I think that any listener should know that policy has been less than clear as Washington has made their way through changes of this magnitude. So before we would say this is exactly what it is, we'd like to see everything in writing and understand what the actual outcome is. But yes, I think there's 2 parts to that we want to pay attention to from our perspective. The first is, when does it go into effect? The second is, these are long-term changes. Right. I think the other part about this is it feels like the crisis of a moment, but it's not. It's the changing of a benefit structure in our community for a lifetime, or certainly for a long time. And so both of those, whenever it starts, the longer-term impact will be felt for, the echo of changes like this will be felt for some time.
Yeah, and I also want to say that in terms of also not probably starting for a couple of years, is also whether Florida is going to be exempted. And by that, I mean, one of the key votes when this negotiations were going on in Washington was with Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski. And I know she got many, specific things for Alaska, good for her, maybe not so great for the rest of the country. But one of them, I believe, and again, we're still, digesting this, so let's see what the follow it is. But I think I understand is that the bill will also temporarily exempt some states with the highest error rates from a provision that would shift the cost of SNAP benefits from the federal government to state government. And what I read is that would include Florida. The other states would be Alaska, Georgia, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, New Mexico, Oregon. Are you familiar with that?
I am.
Yeah.
So again, I think, for clarity, error rate is about how the state processes SNAP benefits.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a review and then understanding of how that benefit was or was not applied correctly. I do want to be really clear. That does not indicate that a user abused the program. Sometimes we conflate the two, and I want to be really, really clear about that it is simply a processing error by the particular state. In the state of Florida, you could have times where there's been less than 5% error rate. You could have times where there's been as much as 12, 13, 14% error rate. It's an interesting tie back from the federal government to say this is how we're going to structure the program. I think it's also interesting that the federal government's saying, hey, states, you now have to bear a greater burden for these services in your state. All of which, going back to your original question about dates, require a significant adjustment to process procedure. And think about it this way. I don't yet know what the final number is for the state of Florida to take on economically, but it's a substantive number, and we already have a tight budget, as Tallahassee would tell us to begin with.
And I know, being up in Tallahassee, I can tell you that this was never on the agenda because, I get this, and this, reporters asked about, say, immigration, which is we have all these changes this year, and like how that was going to affect the budget, what have you. They were so in their silo of just dealing with state issues, but this massive bill is going to have implications for states on all types of different domestic issues, and this is going to be one of them. So definitely going into next year, I know there's going to be a lot of talk about this in terms of what ultimately what the balance of this goes over to Florida, what they're going to have to do, and how much will they be able to come up with, or want to come up with, I should say. They probably can't have the money to deal with that. Thomas, we're going to hold on for a second. We're going to talk, come back to that, but we want to talk for a few minutes here about food, providing for food here in Florida for children, actually. And I do believe we have on the line Sky Beard, who is the Florida director for No Kid Hungry. Sky, are you with us?
I am. Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, great to have you on here with us. And I wanted to bring you on for a few minutes here. We talk about this issue of hunger in Florida and in the Tampa Bay area because, of course, well, first of all, let's tell the listeners, you're the Florida director for No Kid Hungry, an organization focused on ending childhood hunger in the U.S. Tell us a little bit more about your organization.
Yeah, thanks. And we do that in collaboration with great organizations such as Feeding Tampa Bay. So happy to join the conversation with Thomas today. So we are a nonprofit organization who is providing funding, who is providing best practices and resources to schools, to local organizations, to food banks, who are really just trying to connect kids and families with food available in communities. So we don't feed our communities ourselves. We're not a food bank. We're not an organization who does that, but we are a funder and a resource for all kinds of things related to feeding kids across the state of Florida and across the country.
Okay, great. And so the reason I wanted to talk to you is because there has been a program, I guess for a few years, called SunBucks, or the Summer Electronic Benefits Transfer Program, or Summer EBT, that provides, I believe, $120 in grocery benefits per eligible school-age child when school is out for the summer. And these SunBucks can be used to purchase food from authorized retailers in participating states. Excuse me, what have you? Excuse me. So, but this has been around, again, I think for 3 or 4 years, but Florida has not participated. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a missed opportunity that we have in our state, and surely hope that we can continue the conversations here and maybe make a different choice for future summers. But you're correct. It has been around for just a couple years. It was created at the federal level at the very end of 2022 as a new permanent child nutrition program, which doesn't happen every day. So we were all very excited to see that there is a new opportunity, a new tool in all of our toolboxes to address child hunger and food insecurity, particularly in the summer months. We know for a lot of kiddos in our state, those school meals are really their primary source of nutrition throughout the school year. And those folks do a great job feeding kids, lots and lots of kids throughout the school year. And there are some really fantastic summer meal programs happening across the state. Those are incredibly important, an important piece of the puzzle, but they don't reach all the kids that need them. And so summer EBT, or as you mentioned, now referred to as Sunbucks, does help fill that gap over the summer months where families we know are struggling to continue to feed their families. So it's $40 per child, eligible child, over the course of the summer. So that equates to $120 per child for the family to purchase food for their families. So they can go into their local grocery store, their local farmer's market, and purchase healthy, nutritious foods for their children over the summer months. And Florida is one of around about 13 states right now that have not yet elected to participate.
Now, again, we're speaking with Skye Beard. She's the Florida Director for No Kid Hungry, an organization focused on ending childhood hunger in the country. Skye, so the Florida would have to obviously spend some of their own money here, right? And do we know how much that would be, roughly?
Yeah, I think the important thing to remember is that the cost of the benefit, the grocery benefit that we're talking about that would go to these eligible families is federal funding. And it's estimated that Florida would receive about $259 million in federal funds. And again, that's spent in local retailers. And we've got about 2.1 million kids that are eligible. So it's a big impact. Florida would be asked to contribute 50% of the administrative cost to that program, which would equate to around about $12 million. So it's a $12 million investment to get $259 million in benefits to the state.
So back in January, WUSF reported that Mallory McManus, she is the Deputy Chief of Staff for Florida's DCF, Department of Children and Families, which administers other federal food benefits in the state. She said in a statement that, quote, federal programs inherently always come with some federal strings attached. She went on to say, as a state, we are dedicated to making sure children have access to nutritious meals. This takes a whole of government approach that includes free and reduced lunch programs at school, providing SNAP benefits to families who qualify, and through summer break spot programs administered by the Department of Agriculture. And she says over the past 10 years, these programs have been remarkably successful, which maybe they are, right? I mean, it isn't taking that away from it. But again, there's this whole extra amount of folks young kids, obviously, who could obviously benefit from this. What are your thoughts when you hear her comments there?
Yeah, my thought is, and I'm sure Thomas would agree, that we would wish nothing more than for her statement to be true and the reality in our state. We would wish nothing more than there is not a need to bring a program like Sunbucks to the state of Florida, but that's just not the reality. I'm currently calling you from the parking lot of a very rural part of Florida, who is an hour away from the distribution of a summer meals program for kiddos here, and the amount of cars who have been lined up through this park an hour and a half before it's even time to distribute food tells us that the need is greater than the programs we currently have. And we surely need all of those resources to tackle such an important issue such as child hunger.
So obviously for this summer, we're out of luck here, but this program is going to continue to be around. So what's the deadline for Florida if they were to participate in the summer of 2026?
So you're right. It's too late for this current summer, unfortunately, but not too late to think of a different opportunity for next summer. So August 15th, which is right around the corner, is the next date for states to opt in, have an initial conversation with USDA at the federal level, who administers these programs, and raise their hand and say, yeah, we think we need to do this for our state for next summer. There are some subsequent deadlines in January and February, but the next one is right around the corner on August 15th.
So, Skye, if people listening to us right now, they think that the Florida should get involved with it, what do you advise what they should do? Yeah,
there's a lot of conversation that folks that feel strongly about this issue can be part of. the decision-making process for states to say yes to summer EBT lies within the office of the governor. That's where the yes up to USDA comes from. So, letting their interest and voice be heard on this issue for their local elected officials all the way up to the governor's office would be helpful.
Okay, we'll leave it there because we know you do have to go to that program in a few minutes here. Really appreciate you making some time for us. Skye Beard, she's the Florida Director for No Kid Hungry. Skye, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right. We'll move on from that. So, you work with partners like
we
Skye.
do. And Skye and her organization are terrific advocates for children in our community. And I can't emphasize the point that she made enough. 1 in 4 kids in Florida today do not have healthy meals in their household. 1 in 4.
Thomas, let me ask you something.
Yes.
We're talking a lot about policy here, and we're really good at that. But something that you're really good at Feeding Tampa Bay too is just showing the humanity of who is affected by hunger. And when you volunteer there and you work in the food pantry and you're just helping stock stuff, and you see people come in and out, you really start to realize that they don't look a lot different from you, and then you start to think, how close am I to that? It becomes this really human thing. A lot of times when I'm moving around the world and talking about SNAP and things like that, this argument always comes up that, well, I don't want somebody abusing the system. And we talked about abuses, but how do you get around those conversations and bring people back to the ground and get them back to the human thing when you talk about helping people just get through their lives?
Thank you. It's a great question because one of the words that we actively do not use in our vocabulary at Feeding Tampa Bay is them. There's only an us. And I think the longer I've done this work, which is 25 years plus now, I've rarely ever met an individual that didn't deserve compassion, mercy, and grace in the moment in which they approached us. The folks that come into our care have struggled with life issues that are challenging. We often say, don't judge the decisions I've made until you understand the choices I've had. And many people don't have good choices. One of the conversations we try and have with folks is, if you're a parent and you have to choose, so you have 2 children at home, I'll ask you this question. If you have to choose between food and medicine, what's your choice?
Right. I don't know. I've never been faced with that choice.
And that's an awful, awful choice to make, and people are making those choices. And we think that ought not happen to anybody, no matter the policies or politics of anybody. But to answer your question specifically, the people that come to see us are people that serve in our military, but they don't get paid enough, and so their family doesn't have enough food. So they're standing in defense of our country, and we're having to feed them on a food line. The people who come to see us are retired folks whose benefits don't make it any further. So they're your grandmother or grandfather or aunt and uncle. The people that come to see us are folks that are terrifically important to our tourism industry, that make sure that our economy can get the resources it needs to be the tourist destination that we want. The folks that come in to see us are in our farms every day, making sure that we can get the crops we need into our households, or the folks that help us build our homes. And so the reality of the people that we're serving is they're us. One of the things we often say to corporations when we have a conversation with them, we're either feeding your colleagues or your customers or both. I think what we all have to understand is there is no them, there is an us. Everybody listening to this program knows someone who is food insecure. And all of us, and we saw this during the pandemic, all of us are much closer to the reality of needing assistance than we ever consider. And so we often view, we always view the folks we serve as our customers, our neighbors, for whom we are privileged to serve them. They are deserving of our dignity and respect. We don't have people that come in and abuse our system. Here's a thought for you. We have a free grocery store in which you can shop. We changed to that after originally providing boxes of food. And so when we gave out boxes of food, folks would take that and they'd bring that food back into their home. When we allowed them to start saying, okay, let's shop, let's allow you to choose the food that's best for your family, folks took less food than we originally gave them. And when we asked them why, they said, because I would never take something I can't use or don't need, because I know there's someone behind me. And so if we could disabuse any notion, it is somehow that the people we serve aren't deserving of our care. The last story I'll share with you is this. Over the last 3 or 4 years, we've put 75 or 80 pantries inside schools in Tampa Bay. And it's a great way to feed the kids who are at school. It's a great way to take care of the parents, right? So they can come on campus, grab their child, go to the little grocery store on the school campus, and head home. So we decided to take our board on a tour of one of the local school pantries that we have. We wanted them just to understand a bit more about it. And the partner that was sharing all of the benefits and values of families and telling stories of how much it was helping stabilize families, create better grades for kids, better attendance for kids, all that. And then she ended with this. Half of the people using our school pantry are the teachers. So here's a question I would ask all of us. What kind of society do we want to live in where someone who is charged with the welfare of our children, who are teaching them, do we want to live in a community where that person has to come to us to get food to make sure that they can remain being a teacher? How do we feel about that?
Right. Again, if you're just tuning in right now, that's the voice of Thomas Mantz. He's the president and CEO of Feeding Tampa Bay, here, food bank here in the Tampa Bay area that goes out to 10 counties, services 10 counties in the Tampa Bay area. If you want to be part of this conversation, you can give us a call, 813-239-9663. You can send us an email at dj@wmnf.org. Let's talk more about Feeding Tampa Bay, Thomas. I think there's roughly, 250,000 folks in this 10-county region that you serve?
No,
I mean, it was millions.
So, yes.
But, I mean, where am I getting that number from? Okay, wrong number. But let's tell the people, it's Citrus, Hardy, Hernando, Highlands, Hillsborough, Pasco, Pinellas, Manatee, did I say that again? Polk and Sumter County.
Yeah.
And so you guys recently moved, right? You have a new facility. You used to be out in Ybor City, and now
we're still proudly a member of Ybor. But so the numbers, 10-county area, there's a population of about 5.5 million folks. About 1 million plus seek our services on a regular basis, right? So 20+% of that population is coming in and out of our care. We actually think that number is higher because self-reporting is something folks don't like to do.
Yeah.
So yes, a large footprint. And in order to respond to that large footprint, we mounted a capital campaign a couple of years ago. The community helped us build a facility for the community, and so we opened up Causeway Center in May of 24, which has enabled us to create a much greater level of service for our community, not only meals into the community, so we'll increase that, but we also advanced our own approach to work, which is when someone comes to see us, food insecurity or hunger, not having enough food in your home, is symptomatic of other challenges. And so part of our objective as an organization is when someone walks in for food, we want to provide them access to other resources, partnerships, and programs. We like to say, come in for a meal, walk out with a future. So when you walk into our facility and into our care across all of our organization, we can not only provide you the food you need, but we can also provide you job training, benefits access, partnerships with other nonprofits, someone like a crisis center if you need emotional help, Bay Area Legal Services if you need legal services, medical services from Baycare, and other partners that we bring alongside. Because just like us as consumers, when we need something, centrally located care is more efficient, more effective, allows us to leverage our resources much better, and creates longer-term success for folks we're serving.
So if people are going to go out there who maybe, and is that new in terms of like were you doing that over the Ybor facility?
No. It's new. It's a new concept for us as we have continued to expand. It's also new in our industry. A lot of the nonprofit community tends to stick to its knitting. And say, well, this is what we do this well, and we just do this part. And there's a nobility and a success in that. But if you ask neighbors, which we spent the better part of 2 years interviewing before we built the facility, they will tell you, I have to go here for food, there for medical care, here for legal resources, over here for transportation, over here for housing. What we thought was, how about we co-locate that? Start to create a process where folks had better access to goods, services, and resources in one place. This is a new concept in our industry.
If people are listening to us right now who would maybe be in need of that, do they need to make an appointment with your organization?
We do try and do everything appointment-based. And the reason why we do that is that that's better use of our neighbors' time. Right. So, yes, you can go to our website. We have a call-in center. You can call into that. You can find us on our social channels if you're more comfortable using that as a vehicle. But please do. If you need services, reach out to us, and we'll do our best to make sure we can help.
And that's at feedingtampabay.com?
.org.
feedingtampabay.org. Again, 11:30 right now. If you're just tuning into the Skinny here on WMNF 88.5 FM, Mitch Perry, Ray Roa. We're speaking with Thomas Mans. He's the president and CEO of Feeding Tampa Bay, and we've got a caller here. We've got Julie calling in from South Tampa. Julie, hi. You're on the air.
Hey, Thomas. I have a question. I have a bunch of organizations. If we were able to collect food now for whatever you may need or the start of the school year, what are the needs that you would need food-wise?
So thank you very much for that offer. Generally, what we tell everybody is what's easiest is whatever you would put on your table, put on someone else's. Right? And specifically, the folks in our care tend to struggle most with finding protein. So if you can do canned proteins, that's always a terrific opportunity. So shelf-stable canned items, those are things we can put into homes. We marry that with a lot of fresh produce because we want good nutritional health, but that would be perfect for us. And you can, again, go to our website and connect with us if you want to do a food drive of some sort, and one of our teammates will reach out to you to make sure we connect and collect.
Okay, so did you hear a lot of times cereal drives?
We do that. We do a huge one at the start of the start of summer to try and get kids meals. And cereal is always terrific. So any good shelf stable. If you put it on your table, Julie, we'd certainly put it on a neighbor's for you.
Okay, so it would help out if we did a drive over the summer for now.
Yes, certainly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julie. Want to ask before we go, we have another caller. Well, let's go to the caller here. We have another caller. We don't have that person's name. Hi, who's this calling us right now? Where are you from?
Hi, this is Sierra from Tampa, Florida.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. I just wanted to thank you. First of all, I'm on my way to work, and as someone who I struggled with long COVID for the last 4 years of my life, I've been in and out of hospitals and struggling, and I just lost my SNAP benefits. Mm-hmm. And I am in a position now that I'm healthy enough to support myself. I don't really need them anymore, but I know that it's going to be really stressful for me. And the very first thing when I heard you talking is that I want to give back to the community that serves me, especially with the climate currently going on in the world. What's the best way for me to volunteer? To just come to your organization, apply online? I would like to give back to the community, and this sounds exactly like what I want to do with my time.
Thanks for the call.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm glad you're feeling better, and I'm glad your circumstances are improving. And that's exactly why SNAP works, is when someone is in crisis, it helps them manage that crisis, then get back onto their feet. That's what it's meant for. I think the idea that people can live on it forever is false. And again,
But so she wants to help out. Yeah.
So, but in terms of volunteering, yes, feedingtampabay.org. You can go there, and there's a button to sign up to volunteer.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you. So, Thomas, I wanted to ask you also, one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on it was I saw, was it a little over a month ago, you were in front of the Hillsborough County Commission.
Yes.
And you get funding from the county, right?
We execute a couple of service contracts for the county, and I think the devil's in the details and how you, right? The county typically doesn't, and governments typically don't just give nonprofits money. They're paying to have services rendered in a community where those services are necessary. I recognize that it feels like it's splitting hairs, but the reality is the county, the state, the city want to make sure their citizenry is okay, and they deploy programs and use organizations like ours as partners to do that. So we don't just get money handed from the county. Okay. Again, I don't want to jump on the point, but I want to make sure people understand the point.
I want to understand. Yeah, definitely. And it seemed like that you're being questioned by Commissioner Wastl, and it wasn't really warm and fuzzy. Okay. He seemed to be like really challenging. I didn't really understand. I didn't see maybe the whole context, but
yeah, you'd have to ask Commissioner Wastl his position. I think his assertions that we are largely government funded, we would dispute that vociferously, and any cursory check of our funding sources would tell you that's objectively not true.
Yeah.
How he feels about that, I think you'd have to ask him. But from our perspective, we are a charitably based organization. Every single dollar that goes into the community, virtually every single dollar that goes into the community is donated by the community. So we're led by volunteers from the community. We're funded by supporters from the community. And we're happy that that's the case.
Yeah. So, Thomas, I want to ask you a question here. It's kind of a bigger question. 1.3 million people, 2 million meals a week, 85 million meals.
It'll be 100 million meals this year.
A year, right? Mm-hmm. In a perfect world, Feeding Tampa Bay doesn't exist, right? Because food insecurity. Let's put it this way: food insecurity doesn't exist. On separate shows, we've talked about prisons and things like that, and the cost it takes to imprison somebody for so long. Is there a number on what it would take to, maybe end hunger in Tampa Bay?
Wow, that is a big question. I think. It's funny, when I started in this world close to 25 years ago, the idea was that we'd hear a lot, you'd work yourself out of a job, right? The idea is never to have a food relief organization. I think there's a couple of things we all have to pay attention to. One is that there's never really been a poverty rate in the United States that's less than 10%. You're always going to have some folks who are in need of some degree of care, whether it's transitional or ongoing. And so I don't know that an organization like ours would never really exist. For us to provide the amount of meals that we would need statistically based on what we would see right now, that'd probably be around 150 to 160 million meals a year minimum. And so the price tag on that is pretty significant because the cost of acquisition, cost of distribution continues to grow and change. So I don't know if you're trying to get an exact number, but I would say from a community standpoint, it certainly needs to be a much bigger number than it is today, which may be part of your question. I get asked this a lot, and I would say this. One of the positive things we saw during the pandemic was you had 3 separate and distinct groups step up to make sure the community was okay. You had the nonprofit community like ours, who has made sure we were providing resources. You had the government, who passed sensible legislation and support vehicles to make sure that during a crisis those resources existed. And you had foundations and corporations who said, our community is suffering, let us step in. I think that's when communities are at their best. When everybody pitches in and says, we have our share to do to make sure our community is okay. One of the challenges we're facing out of Washington, I think we're facing out of Tallahassee, and then you just mentioned the commissioner we're facing locally, is in some ways the government is saying that's not our business. Yeah. And I'm not going to comment on whether it should or shouldn't be. But what it is a change in a fundamental structure of how folks are looked after in a community. And I think this is what we all have to wrestle with, are we okay with that? I want to be clear, Feeding Tampa Bay, as much as we have grown our organization, so in 12 or 13 years, we've moved from 15 million meals a year out to 100 million meals. We've done everything we can to improve services. We've extended our reach. We've extended our capability. We are still not going to be able to meet the need brought on by growing economic differences in the community, compounded by policy changes that drive more folks into our care. I think these are the things, again, we as a community have to wrestle with. This isn't just about a few folks. It's about a community saying, how do we look after each other? And then what are the consequences that happen?
It's 11:39 here. You're listening to WMNF 88.5 FM from the studios of WMNF in Tampa here. Thomas Mance with the Feeding Tampa Bay, the CEO and president, is with us for a few more minutes here. Thomas, you mentioned this, and I think that you really, again, you've been there for over a decade. You got this new facility. You've also launched different strategic initiatives, including the founding of the Center for Food Security and Healthy Access at USF. What was that?
So part of our challenge, the lovely part of the nonprofit world is it's got a ton of heart. There's a whole lot of passion and dedication and people that will just throw themselves at the problem with a degree of tenacity that's just wonderful to be a part of. But a problem of this size and scope needs a much more thoughtful, strategic, data-based approach, because it's the scope and scale are large. And so we started working with USF about, I want to say probably 8 years ago, to launch the Institute. And it's helped us create studies as to what's happening with food insecurity in households and in communities. So we study really both of those. And along the way, we study efficacy of programs and interventions to make sure that they're working. I don't know if we have time for an example of how that would work. So
yeah, we do.
Okay. So for years, we gave out backpacks in schools. And they were started when teachers came to food banks and said, when a kid comes back on Monday morning, they can't study. They are so nutritionally unbalanced, we have to get food into them before we can start teaching them. And so food banks said, well, we'll create backpacks. And so literally kids went home with a backpack of food. It was a hand consumable, something a child could eat themselves, open a Pop Top, a granola bar, different things. It wasn't meant to be their whole food, but it was meant to supplement a weekend for them. And so into the backpack it would go. The teacher would identify the student. Little Johnny or Sally went home with that food in their backpack. We wanted to know how to improve that program and what the efficacy of it was. So we brought USF in, and they did a multi-location study that created about 600 data points for us. And out of those data points, 2 jumped out at us immediately. The first was 68% of the food was being eaten Friday night by the family. It wasn't the kid who was hungry, it was the family who was hungry. Right? We also were not giving food that was culturally sensitive to different palates, tastes, locations, and backgrounds. So we said, okay, we're smart people. We can figure this out. We started putting stews and soups and all of this into the backpack. And now the kid's going home with 25 or 30 pounds of food on their back, right? Little Sherpas. But Dr. David Himmelgreen, who sat on our board for 10 years, that helped us start the Institute, said to us, you have a bigger problem. And we said, what's that? He said, you're asking a child to become responsible for feeding their family. You can't do that to a kid. That was the last backpack we ever did. We started opening up school pantries. So that kind of research helps us understand. And we have done multiple studies. We did a lengthy study in Pinellas County at high schools that caused them to change their nutrition program in the high school, understanding how high schoolers were accessing food. So the research is helpful for us to understand how to make sure that we are being as thoughtful, strategic, and ultimately successful as we want to be.
I saw just on some local television stations in the last couple of weeks, you did a SNAP challenge. What was that all about?
So again, going back to SNAP, one of the fallacies is we get, this, the first fallacy is nobody needs it. The second fallacy is it's abused. The third is you can live forever on it. The reality is the average person gets $6.12 a day in SNAP. That's the value of what you can get. And so we ask people, and we did some social around this, and shop for $6.12 a day. How does that work for you? Are you able to do that? The two of you, I'm sure, have been in a grocery store lately. So accounting for the cost of the gas to get it there, the cost of the insurance on your car, perhaps the time that your child had to be in daycare, and then the cost of the groceries in the store, all of those things are making your economics much different. But the next time someone goes to a store, figure out $6.12 whether you could feed yourself for the day.
Yeah, and you've done that. I think I've participated in that at your Ybor warehouse. You had an event, and there's certainly a challenge when you start to crunch the numbers and say, what can I do with this money? That's just you by yourself.
Now, Thomas, again, we'll make sure the website is Tampa Bay.
FeedingTampaBay.org.
Okay. Somebody said they went there. There was a problem with that. But anyway, we'll check with that. Also, Florida's 50th in the nation for teacher pay. So I struggle to provide food to my students, but I do what I can. Oh, that's somebody who just wrote us about that. Okay. It's been great to have you here with us. We're just, again, learning so much talking again about SNAP and how this is going to affect our listeners here. Some of the people who go to use your food bank. So I guess we'll continue to monitor this to see how it's going to have this impact. But we know it's going to, whether it's going to be next month or a couple of years from now. This has happened. This big bill, whatever you want to describe it as, is going to happen, and it's going to be a massive cut in what the government has done in terms of providing food assistance. That's just a fact.
It is, and we need to also make sure we mention Medicaid and the changes to Medicaid. So if you think about a household budget. With SNAP, you're taking income, to use a term. You're taking resource out of the household. You're also bringing extra expense into the household if you use Medicaid, because now you have to figure out a way to pay for health care. And so again, it's always a difficult conversation to say what the government should or shouldn't do, right? And folks have very strong feelings about that, and we understand that. Again, what I said before, I would say again, which is how do we create a balanced approach as communities to folks in our community who are struggling to make ends meet? Remember, these are people that largely work. They're invested in the economy. They're invested in the community. They're a core part of who we are. And transitionally, they need support. And these programs have traditionally or typically helped us maintain that level of support until, just like the caller mentioned a moment ago, they got back on their feet.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Thomas Mantz, he is the president and CEO of Feeding Tampa Bay. Great to have you in the studio here.
Thank you.
Thomas, and we appreciate it. We'll hopefully have you back here soon.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here.
Okay, Ray, we're going to transition now to talk politics, electoral politics here locally and we'll talk about the fact that there is a vacancy now because of the passing, very unfortunate passing of Gwen Henderson in District 5 last month. And so this election is going to take place, I believe, in September.
Yeah, so the special election will end on September 9th. Technically, that's voting day. Early voting opens September 4th. There's an August 11th deadline to register to vote. It is the District 5 election. And so if you can only run if you live in District 5, you can only vote if you live in District 5. But it is a big district. It stretches west to east from Tampa, and Broadway Avenue there in Ybor, all the way South Tampa, Harbor Island, I believe. It goes all the way down there, and then north to south.
East Tampa is a big part
River
of it.
Hills, all the way up there. East Tampa is a huge block in there. There are about 44,000 active voters in that district, according to Craig Latimer, who we've had on the show. But in the 2023 election, the late Gwen Henderson defeated Orlando Goods by just 81 votes.
It was that close? I didn't realize that.
And there were other people on the ballot, and this is a special election, so the numbers are going to be even.
And Robin Lockett was one of the people on that ballot.
Correct. Robin Lockett. And right now there are 11 people who've applied to run for the seat. Orlando Goods just dropped out. He cited an issue with residency and when he moved in. But just yesterday afternoon, Allison Hewitt, very active in East Tampa with the EDC and the CRA, filed to run at 4:30 p.m., according to Michael Bishop from the Tampa Monitor. Her joining the race comes less than a week after Crowbar owner, who we've had on the show here, Tom DeGeorge, he filed to run for the seat, made his announcement on July 3rd. Qualifying won't wrap until the 15th. So, we won't really know much then. It takes a lot to qualify. You either got to pay a fee, get some signatures.
Right.
So we'll really jump in after that. But we want to take a temperature on this race. And Robin Lockett is here with us. She can be seen on the front row of pretty much every Tampa City Council meeting, it seems like, as part of her work as the regional director of Florida Rising, which is a people-powered organization, advocates for voter rights, economic, racial justice across the state. But as you mentioned, Mitch, she also ran for District 2 in 23, pushing, no, she ran for 2.
Oh, District 2. I'm sorry.
Yeah, she ran for 2 in 23. She pushed a very popular incumbent, Guido Maniscalco, to a runoff. And that's despite getting in the race just 90 days before the election. I believe Robin is with us right now. Robin, are you here? Robin Lockett.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you? Good to see you.
I'm doing great.
Am I correct? There was no Tampa City Council yesterday? I feel like I logged on to YouTube and it wasn't on.
Oh, yeah. They're off for, I think, like 2 weeks.
What are you doing with yourself?
Resting. Working in my office. They're out for 2 weeks.
Right on. Robin, you know Tampa City Council inside and out. You know all the people that come in there who comment. You are just intimately involved with the agenda. You really know it. So we're really grateful that you're here to give some insight to our readers. I kind of want to jump in. Let's talk about legacy. For me, I saw Councilwoman Henderson really start to evolve on the dais and really become a force on there advocating for things. The special election legacy will play a part of that. Her daughter is in the race, and she was really starting to get her teeth into some issues. What do you see as the things that she was starting to really get into, and what are your hopes for this seat here?
I really hope that that seat brings somebody that is fearless. When Councilwoman Henderson joined, it took her a minute to get acclimated with the process, with the politics of it, with the budget, with understanding, just a whole realm of how city council really works. And but when she had a voice and she made it be known, if she really was passionate about something, she was very challenging. And I was excited, probably like maybe the last 7-8 months, I started to see her take that turn and really, she asked the important questions and she wouldn't back down from it. But I really started seeing her just grow and pivot. And I was excited, if she had made it to 4 years, to see what type of councilwoman she would have become.
Orlando Goods was in this race up until this week. Like I said, he withdrew over what he called a potential conflict over his district residency status. He was a popular incumbent, but he also ended up being embroiled in a lot of, drama over at City Council as he kind of butted heads with the mayor. You are very familiar with the things that happened in Tampa elections. How worried are you about this particular special election getting ugly?
I really hope it doesn't. Unfortunately, in East Tampa, the politics there, it provides bad history on people, name calling and so forth, and not really, a lot of the times, not all races are like that, but a lot of the times. So I hope that this is a clean race. I hope that, and I've said this out loud to the community, that, you talk about your candidate, talk about all the things that your candidate aspires to do. And, and support that. And so I hope it's a clean race. I really do.
Yeah, we'll see about that. It certainly wasn't the case a couple of years ago when all 7 seats were up. Robin, going back to Orlando Gudes for a moment, it does seem like he was, because a lot of this is going to, based on name recognition. This is a special election. There's going to be a small percentage of folks voting. And that's why it's important that we talk about this, because a lot of people know there's actually an election coming up in a couple of months here. Gudes had the endorsement of State Senator Darrell Rouson, State Rep Diane Hart, former City Council member Gwen Miller and her husband, former County Commissioner and State Senator Les Miller. So whether he would win or not, I don't know, but he had a lot of the establishment backing him there from the East Tampa community. Thomas Scott, we know as a familiar name, of course, former Tampa City Councilman and former County Commissioner, who's also, frankly, lost the last several elections that he's been up for. So he's not an automatic given. Who else? Those are known names. So there's a lot of other names on that list there. Can you tell us about some of the other folks
Elvis
there?
Piggott is a perennial.
Oh yeah,
candidate,
Elvis. I should say. And by the way, I saw Elvis. I was at the Hillsborough County Republican Party meeting on Monday night, and Elvis was there, and there was 2 other folks there. So we know there's 3 Republicans already in this race. It's a nonpartisan race, but we know there's 3 Republicans.
Audette Bruce is also in the race, a pastor at Revive Church, a realtor, Juana Colbert, who I know from selling Tampa on reality TV. Elvis, as we mentioned, Fran Tate, president of Jackson Heights Neighborhood Association. Melanie Williams, she's a vet. And then also Naya Young, director of the Tampa Heights Junior Civic Association. As we mentioned, a late joiner, not late, I guess, still there, Allison Hewitt just applied to run for the race this year. Is it too early to say, Robin, who might be great for this community? District 5 has been known as a black seat on Tampa City Council, but it is this huge tract of Tampa, and there's a diverse group of people there.
It is a diverse group of people, and me personally, it would be a shame for that seat to be taken by anybody other than a black, and not having that verbal representation on that board. That would be a shame. So, but it is a diverse group of people, and the forums are coming out. People can state one-on-one what their plans are, but when the questions come to them at different forums and the lights are on, we'll see who really prevails and who's semi-fit for it, because you never understand what that seat is about until you sit in it. And Orlando, with him initially applying, he was the person, and even Pastor Scott, Bishop Scott, he had experience at it. So no one really understands the magnitude of what that seat is. And, and whether you have the wherewithal to stand up against the administration, because that's what I see council do all the time, right? Stand up against the administration and powers being defined. So it's going to be interesting. We need somebody that's going to support that.
Do you know you mentioned too Scott and Gudes, because they have been elected before. So I think there's people who follow Tampa politics certainly know their work. And again, Gudes is out now. So most of these people have never ran for public office before. I guess Elvis Piggott has. But is there anybody that again, not putting the weight of anybody in terms of like your own thought, support for them, but just like that we should know more about, and you think have done stuff in the community there?
I'm excited for the younger people coming out and having the bravery to run for this seat. Everybody's on the same level to me, to be honest.
Okay, yeah.
Because again, no one has sat in that seat before, and everybody in their own way has contributed something to East Tampa. So I'm just excited I want to push forth the younger people because, that is a future. We have to start building a bench. And I'm looking forward to hearing from these. I think it's the younger individuals are all women. So I'm happy I'm looking forward to hearing their fresh perspective, right? Because again, if we keep doing the same thing over and over again, it's going to be chaotic. So what do they have to bring to the table that they may see differently?
Yeah,
and moving East Tampa forward.
Yeah, I don't know their exact ages, but Naya Young, certainly a fresh face. And obviously Gwen Henderson's daughter, Ariel, a young face. I watched the funeral on Facebook streaming, and she had very powerful comments, really candid stuff about the way, she viewed her mom and how long it took her to realize how hard her mom was working to give them a good life. We should mention, Mitch, our past guest of the show, Jarvis El Amin, together with Candy Lowe, will be hosting a candidate roll call for the Tampa City Council District 5 race. That's July 26th.
Okay,
10 a.m. to noon right there at Al's Finger Licking Good Soul Food on 7th Avenue.
Okay, 2 weeks from this Saturday, tomorrow.
Yep,
okay,
that's correct.
Good.
Robin, what kinds of questions are you hoping that these candidates field? And what are some tired things in Tampa politics that you hope don't come up?
So what I hope is addressed is economic development. That's very important in East Tampa. And, you have to really understand the lay of the land to offer something different. So what would you do differently? Or what would you suggest differently? What's your lens look like in regards to that? Senseless building. With homes and apartment complexes. How does that look? What's the vision of East Tampa? East Tampa, I hear Hyde Park come in and talk about their characteristic. I hear South Tampa do the same thing in other areas. West Tampa has a characteristic. What is East Tampa's characteristic? How do we want the new properties to look over in East Tampa? What type of businesses do we want in East Tampa? How do we want East Tampa to look without anybody else taking over it? Not Ybor pushing forward to take more of that area away. How do we really want East Tampa to look? What's the new ideas around that? I really want to, and that deals with economic development. That deals with building. I want to really understand and see the vision of what they want out of that, what they see.
All right, I think we should leave it there. Robin Lockett.
Yeah, Robin Lockett, thank you. Actually, Robin, let me ask you one thing. Just because we've asked everybody, you ran for District 2. Would you run for council again? Would you run for mayor?
Mayor, one day in the future. I am. I am not running for council. I am running for District 63 when Diane Hart comes out, state rep
next year. Okay, right,
yes.
for Florida House. Yes. Great, yes. Robin. Thank
Robin
you so
Lockett, director at Florida Rising. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure we're going to talk to you a bunch in between now and Election Day for this.
And Florida Rising will be hosting a candidates forum also because our members.
When is yours?
We're meeting today to decide.
Perfect. As soon as you let me know, and we'll let our listeners know.
Thank you so much, Robin Lockett.
Thank you for the opportunity.
By the way, we should say we just got about a minute and a half left, Ray. This weekend in Tampa, the Tampa Convention Center, we've got Turning Point USA, and that includes Pete Hegseth, Kristi Noem, Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Laura Ingraham, Donald Trump Jr. They're all in Tampa either tonight or tomorrow.
And Pete Hegseth already made headlines at McDill the last time he was here. That guy has got cool hair, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
That's going to be it for us, guys. On behalf of myself, Ray Rowe with Creative Loafing Tampa Bay, Mitch Perry, senior reporter at the Florida Phoenix, Kip Sassy on the boards for us today, Christine on the phones. Thank you so much for listening to WMNF Tampa today. Joellen Schilke is in Studio 1. The lights are set perfectly for a fantastic afternoon and transition into the music block with art in your ear. Thank you so much for supporting this station. We're going to need your support here as some of our funding gets cut from the government, but we're so happy to be here and so happy that you are too. Have a great weekend.
WMNF Tampa.